There is nothing that gets me more riled up than when people lie about hair. The only reason it feels so hard to get amazing hair is because there are so many ridiculous hair myths running around out there, sending you in the wrong direction. Today, we're busting those myths so they stop holding you back from having the hair that you always wanted. First up, sulfates are bad for your hair. The robots and Transformers, the little guys.
Sulfates are so bad for you, man.
Yeah, so bad, so bad. All right, so the sulfate myth goes like this. Sulfates are these things called surfactants. They surround dirt and oil in your hair to get it clean. But the legend says that if you use too much sulfates, it can be bad for your hair. In other words, if you wash your hair too often, that's bad. But let's be honest, unless you're a chemist, you really have no idea what a sulfate is. And when you don't even know what something is, it's really easy to get scared. Like, what do they know that I don't? I guess I'll just go with them, even though they probably don't know what sulfates are either. Back when I was a kid, I heard a story on the news that a big snake living down in the sewers would come up into somebody's house through their toilet. That story absolutely terrified me. So for the next year, every time I walked past the bathroom, I would check to make sure there wasn't a giant snake lifting the lid of the toilet seat up. But guess what? To this day, there has still never been a giant snake coming to get me, and sulfates aren't coming to get you either. As soon as you know why they say sulfates are bad, you won't be afraid of them anymore. So let's take 5 seconds to dip our toes into this craziness. Sulfates are something called a surfactant. It's just a fancy word for saying that they lift oil and get your hair clean. The reason they say sulfates are bad is not because there's some impurity in shampoos or that they do something bad to your hair.
Sulfates are really bad.
They actually admit that sulfates are awesome.
Sulfates are so awesome. They're like the best.
The only reason they say that sulfates are bad is because if you use too much of them too often, you will lift too much oil from your hair and dry it out. In other words, if you wash your hair too often, you risk drying your hair out. Have we heard that before? But guess what happens if you wash your hair too often using a sulfate-free shampoo?
Nothing.
The exact same thing. It's the exact same thing. You never want to wash your hair too often. It's never a good thing. So this whole time, they had you thinking that sulfates were like really bad or evil ingredient or something. But the harmful thing they were talking about the whole time was actually you washing your hair too often. It's so dishonest. Now, if I wanted to give them some credit, I would say that like, yeah, in some cases, if you have tape-in extensions, if you have fun colors, if you have a keratin treatment, yes, you may want to use a sulfate-free shampoo. But in general, you should not be picking your shampoos based on if it has sulfates or not. If you do that, you might as well get an alarm system for your toilet for the next time an anaconda comes up from the sewer to get you. Moving on. Curly hair is different than straight hair. All right, so sometimes people get frustrated with me. They say, Chris, I have curly hair. What do I need to do to make sure I don't get breakage? Chris, I have wavy hair. What do I need to do differently? The answer is you need to do the exact same thing I tell everyone to do in my videos. People think that you either have curly hair or straight hair. And if you have curls, you have to wear it like this. Or if you have straight hair, you have to wear it like this. But that's absolutely not true at all. My salon co-founder Leslie's hair usually looks like this. But naturally, it looks like this. When she comes on in these videos, people are always like, oh, look at Leslie's straight hair. It must be nice for her to wake up with perfectly straight hair like that.
No, I don't. And it isn't.
And that is not at all what's going on here. She has some of the curliest hair out there, and the whole reason she and I started the salon is because she loves the look of smooth salon hair, just like I do. So the big secret here is that there is no secret. It doesn't matter what hair you were born with, the only thing that matters is how you want your hair to look. So the next time you're like, Chris only talks about straight hair. I'm sure that this only works for straight hair because I see Leslie's straight hair. None of this applies to me. I want you to remember that I'm actually speaking directly to you and your curly hair.
Or your wavy hair.
or wavy hair. So when I'm showing you how to detangle hair or something, I'm literally showing you the full curly hair version that works for both curly people and straight hair people. When I show you how to blow dry or use a blow dry brush, I'm giving you the curly hair version because that works best for both curly people and straight hair people. Most of what I know is actually based off of Dominican salon techniques, because if something works on super curly texture hair, it'll work on any type of hair. You need to separate the way your hair naturally looks from the way that you want it to look, because it can look like whatever you want. The only thing is you need to keep in mind you're watching a video from a guy who owns a salon teaching you how to get salon hair at home. This channel is literally called The Blowout Professor.
And he has no hair.
Frequent trims for hair growth. All right, tell me if you've heard this myth before from your stylist or somebody else. The myth says that the secret to growing really long hair is to trim your ends. Get longer hair by making it shorter. Got it. What they're trying to say is that your ends will split. If only you got a trim, that split wouldn't have been able to travel up your hair shaft and ruin your life. There's just one thing off with this, and it's a pretty big and obvious one. Split ends don't travel. That's why we call them split ends. I don't care what any stylist said back in the 80s, it's time for modern hair care and the truth. There is no such thing as split mids or split roots or anything like that. You will never run into anybody who has a split hair up here and these two pieces dangling down like that. Doesn't happen. There's one more thing that's wrong with this myth, and it's that they're telling you there's no way to stop split ends. They say split ends are gonna happen no matter what, give it up, crew. And that conveniently, the only one who can swoop in and save your ends is your stylist who gave you this advice in the first place. Nice try, hair industry. And yes, I am part of the hair industry too, but I promise you, I'm trying to fix things and make them right. But this thing's like the American Revolution. It's gonna take a minute or two, so bear with me. You ever seen that picture of George Washington on the boat? If you see Christina crossing the Delaware, it's gonna be pretty funny. It's a ship, actually. What we really should be telling you is how to take care of your ends so they never even split in the first place. It's way nicer to have healthy, shiny ends that grow out instead of these dry, dead ends that you have to pay to get rid of every 6 weeks. That's totally ridiculous and the opposite of what you should be doing. Taking care of your ends is actually super easy. There's a thing called hair oil. When you're done with your normal after shower hair routine, all you're gonna do is use this at the end on dry hair. All you're gonna do is take a small amount like this, rub it between your palms, nice and good, like this, oh yeah. And then you're gonna run it over your ends. This is my salon co-founder, Leslie, demonstrating exactly how to do it here. The whole thing takes about 30 seconds to do. You can put some of this on your mids too, but I really wouldn't put it anywhere near your roots unless you have coarse, dry hair like Leslie here. My favorite for fine or medium hair is Olaplex 7. This is super light. It gives you a shiny, polished look. It's really cool, and it just absorbs into the hair so it never feels oily or greasy unless you use too much. Don't get greedy with this. But if you have coarse hair, oil is even more important. You need something that's a little bit stronger, like this Moroccan oil, because coarse hair will drink this right up. Again, you're gonna use this at the end of your after shower hair routine, and then you're gonna check your ends every morning to see if they look dried out. And if they do look dried out, run a little bit more oil over them. That's how you get healthy ends. That's how you actually grow your hair out. Moving on. Heat is bad for hair. All right, so here's something that I went through with a client a couple years ago. She lived up in New York, but she would spend a few months down here in Florida whenever it got too cold for her up there. One time when she came in, she told me that her stylist in New York, who does all her color, says you have to stop heat styling because it's damaging your hair. So I'm like, okay, let's take a look. I turn her around so we can both see her hair in the mirror, and I say, do you notice any patterns in your breakage? Her hair had always been really healthy up until a few months ago when she had gotten some highlights done. I asked her to point to the damage, and as she's looking at it, she's like, wait, why is the damage only in my highlights? It turned out that the stylist was a little too aggressive in taking her hair blonde, and going blonde is one of the most damaging things you can possibly do to your hair. Most stylists won't tell you that. And what happens is sometimes stylists will try to blame you for damage that they actually did to your hair. You'll be in their chair asking them like, hey, why do I have damage? And they will look you straight in the face and say, you need to stop heat styling. Heat styling is bad. And they're telling you this as they're actually heat styling your hair. Every industry has this canned response to get people off their back. Like for computers, it's like, oh, have you been cleaning your cookies? You gotta clean those cookies. In hair, it's heat styling that's always the scapegoat. And sometimes it is actually true. Sometimes people do use too much heat. But if you follow 3 simple rules, heat will never, ever damage your hair. It'll actually bring your hair to life and make it look better. The rules are, 1, let your hair rest 3 days before you put heat on it again. 2, use a blow dry cream as heat protection when you blow dry. And 3, use a thermal protectant if you use an iron. It's super easy. If you want a full explanation, check out this video up here. We don't have all time for that because we are moving on. Hair porosity. The porosity story goes like this. Hair is made up of like these overlapping scales. When these scales are sealed tightly, water struggles to get into the hair. That's called low porosity. But when the scales don't fit together tightly, that's called high porosity. Now, all of that is actually true, and this is when we start to wander off into fairyland here. They say the porosity is based on genetics and that low porosity hair needs this kind of products and the high porosity hair needs those kind of products. And honestly, I gotta give it to them because this is a really, really slick marketing gimmick. When you go off and buy your porosity products and they don't work, they can always just be like, well, you got the wrong porosity. You need to try these products over here for the other porosity. And then it's me who has to unbrainwash you by telling you that porosity is just a code word for damage. That layer of scales on the outside of your hair, they fit together tightly when your hair is healthy. But when your hair gets damaged, the scales chip off and they don't fit tightly together. So it's really not high porosity or low porosity. It's really healthy hair versus damaged hair. That's it. Porosity is downstream, meaning it's the final result of how you've been looking after your hair for the last year or so. The key to getting healthy hair here is to go upstream and have a good, healthy hair routine so that the scales never get chipped and broken off in the first place. Doing that is the easiest thing in the world. Just check out my recommended product list. It'll walk you through everything. Tools with a perfect temperature. GHD is the main group pushing this myth, and no offense to anybody over there, but I really hate seeing people get completely ripped off. So here's a quick story about a client who got one of these. One of my regulars has a daughter who went off to college, and she's like, hey mom, can I have a flat iron for Christmas this year? So her mom, God bless her, got her this really nice, top of the line, expensive flat iron. So next time mom comes in, she says, hey Chris, I got this amazing iron. She knows not to use it every day because that'll destroy her hair. But no matter what she does, she can't get it to stay straight for more than one day. We go over all my usual flat iron stuff, which you can see here in this video. But finally, I just ask her like, hey, which iron did you actually get her? And she tells me it was this one. As soon as she told me, it was like a plot twist in a movie because I knew exactly what was going on. This iron, if you could even call it that, is super expensive. If you read the box, it says it has all these crazy features that do literally nothing. Absolutely nothing. And when I say it's expensive, this thing costs $280. And the only real feature this thing has is you can't even change the temperature. It's stuck on 365 degrees, which isn't effective and doesn't work for like 90% of people. And if that wasn't enough, it's ceramic, not titanium. So when my client's daughter tried to straighten her hair with this, it didn't transfer enough heat to keep her hair straight for more than like a couple of hours. This thing and other heat technologies are like easy bake ovens. On the outside, they make look real, but really you're just playing around. Anytime that somebody is trying to sell you an expensive tool by saying technology has came a long way, I need you to cut them off as rudely as possible and say, no, it hasn't. Heat is heat. Ignore this guy, get the best iron on the market for half the price from Babyliss. You'll get way better results. Just remember the rules for using heat safely because your iron isn't going to protect your hair for you. You have to do that. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out today. If you had a good time, why don't you check out another video. Have a good one.
If I didn't bore you too much and you can tolerate my voice for another 15 minutes, why don't you click here?
Holy crap, that snake actually popped out of the toilet.